Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here today because, well, we're setting the stage for an absolutely incredible 9,000-year journey into human history. We're going to trace the breathtaking rise of the Sindhu Sarasvati civilization, watching it literally transform from these early, small farming settlements into one of the most sophisticated urban metropolises of the ancient world. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Roots of the civilization. 2. Mapping the ancient timeline. 3. Crafts, culture, and continuity. 4. Advanced agricultural innovations. And finally, 5. Standardizing the ancient world. We're tracing the society's evolution strictly step by step, from its Neolithic farming roots straight to a highly organized urban metropolis. All right, let's get right to it.
Section 1. Roots of the civilization. Geography is destiny.
To really wrap our heads around the massive scale of human progress, we have to recognize that it almost always starts with geography. The landscape literally dictates the possibilities. Take a look at Mehrgarh, nestled near the foothills of Baluchistan. Right around 7000 BCE, a whole new Neolithic way of life emerged right here. And then it spread like wildfire east across the incredibly fertile alluvial plains of the Indus and the Sindhu-Sarasvati basins. So the environment is absolutely crucial here. When these early communities introduced copper tools into these rich, fertile plains, it drastically boosted their productivity. And as we know, increased productivity leads directly to increased prosperity.
Which brings us to a really vital term for today's explainer, the Chalcolithic period. It sounds fancy, but it's basically that fascinating transitional phase where humans started using copper tools right alongside their traditional stone tools. It's a real game changer. By around 4000 BCE, some of these settlements in the Indus and Saraswati basins had actually figured out how to extract copper from its ores. This massive technological leap officially marked the earliest Chalcolithic sites in the subcontinent, basically signaling the very dawn of the Bronze Age in this region. Section 2. Mapping the ancient timeline, a linear journey.
Now that we know where all this happened, we're going to travel through time to grasp the sheer age and the vast scale of these cultural developments. Because building a metropolis, that is definitely not an overnight success story. We start way back in the Neolithic period, around 7000 BCE. Fast forward a few thousand years to 4500 BCE, and we hit that Chalcolithic period we just talked about. Then, by 3300 BCE, we enter the Bronze Age and the early Harappan phase. And it actually isn't until 2600 BCE that we reach the fully mature Harappan stage. I really want you to absorb this. We're looking at a slow, continuous, unbroken evolution over thousands upon thousands of years. And the best part? We have the hard science to back this up. Radiocarbon dates actually prove that at some sites along the dried river belt of the Saraswati, specifically places like Birana and Kunal, the pre-Harappan phase kicked off between 7000 and 5500 BCE. These early regional styles, they didn't just fade away or disappear. No, they evolved over huge stretches of time to eventually become the standard, defining features of the Sindhu Sarasvati civilization by 2500 BCE. This deep cultural continuity is exactly why this era is generally described as early Harappan. Section 3. Crafts, Culture, and Continuity. Building a Society. You see, these early Harappans weren't merely surviving as farmers out in the plains. They were actively building a thriving, highly creative economy. They were practicing a massive array of arts and crafts, which served as a huge economic boost. We're talking pottery with incredibly unique regional styles and vessel shapes and painted designs. But it didn't stop there. We have evidence of advanced copper working, shell bangles, terracotta objects, and the production of these really beautiful semi-precious stone beads, with bead production found all over, like at Harappa in Pakistan, Kunal in Haryana, and Atrana in Gujarat. And this brilliantly illustrates how this specific economic diversification paved the very way for the emergence of complex urban centers. Now, with all that economic growth comes the need for, well, organization. Let's trace the logical progression of how their society developed. First up, you need physical security, right? So we see the building of perimeter walls around these settlements. Once those physical borders are established, you're going to need administrative tools to manage your trade. That leads directly to step 2, the extensive use of seals, featuring these really cool geometric and animal motifs. And finally, step 3, those seals eventually give way to the very beginnings of early Harappan writings and scripts. I want to read a quote directly from our source material here because it's just so fascinating. Quote, "Extensive use of graffiti on pottery and a few seals with geometric and simple animal motifs could be seen as forerunners to the script and inscribed seals." End quote.
I love this because it highlights exactly how human communication was evolving right before our eyes. They were literally sparking the beginnings of a written language.
Section 4. Advanced Agricultural Innovations. Feeding the Metropolis. But think about it. How exactly did such a massive, booming population sustain itself? Well, take a look at this early Harappan plowed field found at Kalibangan. It's nearly 5,000 years old. If you look closely at the soil there, you can clearly see horizontal and vertical furrows crisscrossing each other. This isn't just some random digging in the dirt. This highly specific grid pattern is undeniable proof of double crop cultivation. Let's put that into perspective for a second. Ancient Kalibangan used these exact horizontal and vertical furrows to grow two completely different crops at the very same time. Now compare that to modern India today. The exact same seasonal Rabi and Kharif double crop cultivation is still being practiced. How cool is that? It's an incredible relatability anchor for us. A farming technique developed nearly 5,000 years ago was so perfectly adapted to this environment that it remains a total staple of agriculture in the region today. Section 5. Standardizing the Ancient World. The Math of Trade. With a booming agricultural surplus and all those diverse crafts we talked about, the Harappans needed a reliable way to exchange goods seamlessly across their highly sophisticated, efficient inter-regional trade networks. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the meticulous, perfect shape of these stones. These are perfectly cubical stone weights used by the Harappans. They aren't just pretty rocks. They represent a strictly enforced, fully standardized system of weight and measurement. Breaking down the math here on screen reveals just how incredibly smart this system really was. The Harappans actually used two different mathematical systems depending on exactly what they were weighing out. For the smaller units, they used binary multiples, so denominations of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on. But for the larger units, they seamlessly switched over to decimal multiples, multiples of 10. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that these ancient people possessed the incredible mathematical precision needed to standardize trade across vastly different, widespread settlements. The number 16 is particularly notable here. It was a major benchmark in their binary system for weighing smaller, likely highly valuable items. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. This level of highly organized, mathematically regulated commerce existed over 4,000 years before anything resembling modern global economics. It's truly mind-blowing. I want to wrap up this explainer by leaving you with a really provocative question straight from our source material. Can you imagine how long-distance trade would have been affected had the Harappans not followed a standard system of weights? Without this kind of mathematical standardization, the complex, widespread urban integration of the Sindhu Sarasvati civilization simply couldn't have existed. It makes you realize just how absolutely vital these early, brilliant innovations are to the very foundation of human civilization. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through time today. I hope this explainer sparked your curiosity as much as it did mine. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.